Hey everyone, Philip here. Welcome to part 8 of the What's Wrong With Me series, where I go over the last 10 years of my life and document everything I've been through since being in a car accident in April 2009, one that I have not healed from 10 years later. This is part 8, as said. This is dealing with the lawsuit. Now, if you've watched the entire series up till now, you'll recall that in part 2, I went in depth about the accident and what happened and what it did to me and whatnot. And then in part 3, I went even more in depth about what it did to me physically afterwards. But if you haven't watched the series, to give a quick recap, in April of 2009, I was rear-ended by a drunk college student who fell asleep at the wheel with her foot on the gas and rear-ended me going full speed. They clocked her between 70 and 80 miles per hour, and it did permanent damage to my spine and neck. Keep in mind that the drunk person not only obstructed justice, she refused to cooperate with the police, she also lied to the cops. So keep those things in mind when I go over more stuff here in a few minutes about the lawsuit. In video 4, The Aftermath in Ohio, I specifically talked about one of the biggest mistakes I made was coming back to Ohio. And that just wasn't a personal reason for what happened to me afterwards or anything that happened subsequently after that. It also affected the legal case. To again catch up on that for people who haven't watched the previous videos, I did, after the accident I had the accident in April. In June, my ex drove us back from Phoenix to Ohio, but I went way more in depth about that whole process in that video. I did that because I wanted to be with family. I wanted to be somewhere where I would feel safe and supported. And, you have to remember, I had almost died, essentially, a couple months ago and was told that I shouldn't be walking. So I was not only dealing with a life-changing injury, I was also dealing with life-changing mental faculties as well. That's a lot to process. And that's just in the beginning, not counting anything else that happened to me in the years up to where the story is right now, which is, I think, February 2013 is where we left off. And we will continue that in part 9 also, by the way. But the big mistake as far as the lawsuit in coming back to Ohio was essentially coming back to Ohio. The defense lawyer used that against me. They said that since I was okay to drive cross country, then obviously my so-called injuries weren't as bad as they appeared to be. Notwithstanding the actual facts being that I was in god-awful pain the entire trip. I had that weird feeling I described on the drive back in my spine. And on the last leg of the trip, I had this bone back here pop up so bad that it was poking out of my neck. You could see it sticking up. It wasn't by any means an easy trip, and it was a trip that I probably shouldn't have taken in hindsight, clearly. But for them to say that it proved that I was healthy enough to make the trip, I wasn't. I was just stubborn and being tunnel visioned. And the fact that I had pictures of my neck and what it looked like and what happened to it, and the fact that they were inadmissible in court really kind of started showing me the lack of justice in the legal system. It's not made for people who get hurt. It's made to protect the guilty, not to help the innocent. Kind of like with my disdain for doctors, they're not out to help the people that need help. They're out to make as much money as possible. But yeah, coming back to Ohio, huge mistake, because according to them, I was healthy enough to make that trip, so therefore I must be healthier than I'm letting on. Not true. And I did have the evidence, but they wouldn't take it. So. And then another reason that leaving Phoenix was a big mistake was what happened with me and my job. And this is very important, especially for everyone out there that worked with me at Blockbuster that I'm still friends with, because I'm still friends with quite a few of you to this day. My district leader was named Tammy. That's all I'll say. If you worked with us, you remember Tammy very well. You remember that Tammy was not at all equipped to be a district leader. I think she came from Mary Kay or something prior and then somehow got district leader. I think she came on as district leader, I think 2007, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, friends, but I think it was 2007, 2008. She wasn't there super long, but long enough to show how inept she was at the job. And if I sound like I'm being overly critical, I have complete reason to be. Just stay tuned. If you remember, Tammy was always about meeting that bottom line. And not always doing it in the most ethical way. And I won't go any farther on that. But when I moved back from Phoenix to Ohio, I was getting disability through Blockbuster. And then less than a month later, I was taken off of disability with no warning at all. And I was doing everything they asked. I was going, I was sending medical records. I was keeping updated. I was doing everything that was asked of me on that end. This is hearsay, and I will freely admit to that. But the hearsay through the grapevine is that Tammy took me off of disability because that was an unnecessary expenditure affecting her bottom line. So she's another in the long line of people who put profit before my personal well-being. From what I know of Tammy, I believe this to be true. I think that she did cut me off of that for that reason. She'd done shady stuff like that before to people. And, I remember being a party to one where I had to help cover it up for her. And that could be completely in the realm of complete fair and okay business practices. Maybe I'm just being salty and taking it personally. I admit that. But this next part is not. My only lifeline in the case to my job was Tammy. My lawyer even called her our key witness because she could speak to how I was before the accident, how the accident impacted me occupationally. I'm having to take time off. She saw me in action when I couldn't do stuff. She saw me. She saw physically what I looked like. She also was a witness that we were planning to move to Chicago. So Tammy was the absolute end-all be-all occupationally to my case, because there were two sides of it. There was, there was three sides kind of. There was the accident, which was indisputable what happened. Then there was work, what happened there, and then there was the personal stuff, what happened there. She was the crux of what happened with work. It all hinged on her testimony. And I said the lawyer called her the key witness. Tammy was very affable, very agreeable, was working with us fine. And then, this is why I bring up the disability being stopped out of nowhere. The week it stopped, and I remember this vividly, the week it stopped when I noticed that it wasn't happening anymore, I got a call from my lawyer saying, can you call Tammy? She's not returning any of our calls. So then I call Tammy and I pretty much say, hey, I know that you're probably really busy, but when you get a chance, can you please call me or the lawyer back? It's really important. And about 2 weeks went by and the lawyer tried to call a few more times and it went to voicemail every time. We eventually got into August and she still wasn't answering back. And keep in mind, this started within a week after disability being nixed. And I called her one more time in August and essentially just kind of poured my heart out about the situation and told her honestly you are the key witness. I need you for this case. I need your testimony. If we can't lose you, this will completely mess up everything. Begging her, saying, I need you, please. Don't leave me hanging, please. And she did. I never talked to her again. I never heard from her since. And the key witness in my case went MIA because it wasn't important to her. And since I wasn't around and I wasn't a liability anymore for her, she didn't need to, pretend to care or to give a damn. So she didn't. If she ever watches this, I want you to know that my case crashed and burned because of you. We had no clout from the business side of things. I offered to have friends testify, but my friends aren't my boss. My other store managers that are friends aren't my boss. I needed my boss. And, she'd been there and she'd seen it and she had firsthand account of everything that was going on with me on the work side of things. And that was gone. So strike one was I was okay enough to drive from Phoenix to Ohio. Strike two was losing the key witness in Tammy for the case against the defense who were claiming that I was perfectly fine. And then strike three came when I came back to Ohio. As said in the Aftermath in Ohio video, I called everyone. I wanted an orthopedic doctor. I wanted a back or spine specialist. I knew something was wrong with me. And this is something that if you watch the videos, you realize this is kind of a recurring thing where I keep saying, I know what's wrong with me, no one's listening. And eventually I just had to settle for a chiropractor and I didn't want one. I didn't want a chiropractor. And unfortunately, I had the bad luck of getting a chiropractor who ended up doing more damage to me than good, and one that I said in the video that I wish if I could sue him, I would. But that's not the point. The point is that the defense then used that against me. They said that since I was seeing a chiropractor and not an orthopedic doctor, that must also prove that I'm not as bad as I say I am, because if my condition was as bad as I say it is, I would not settle for a chiropractor, which would handle lesser severity of injury. I couldn't prove that I tried calling every single orthopedic doctor and they turned me down, and that is hand to God. I tried calling everyone in the phone book, and I had to resort to chiropractors, and I called 3 or 4 chiropractors that turned me down. And what made no sense to me about it all was I was on a car lien for the accident, which means you were going to get paid. I guess since they weren't getting paid right away, it wasn't good enough, but I did try and call every single orthopedic doctor in that phone book, and every single one told me no. So that was strike 3. Since I didn't go see a proper spinal specialist, that I must have been okay enough. So I was okay enough to drive home, and I only got a chiropractor, so I must just be making a mountain out of a molehill when it was exact opposite. I'm so irritated with myself because I had an open and shut case. Drunk driver, fell asleep at the wheel, rear-ended us, obstructed justice, lied to the cops. It was open and shut. If I'd stayed in Phoenix, none of this would have, no driving back to Ohio, no seeing a chiropractor, because I was seeing Dr. Lawyer, who was something of an orthopedic doctor, even though he misdiagnosed me too. I didn't do myself any favors, but I wasn't thinking clearly, because I was in this new pain, this intense pain, and I just wanted to be back home. From then on, it was me kind of jumping through hoops for them, sending them medical records. I took pictures of my spine and stuff for them. I sent them in. I posted some of them in a previous video. They were actual pictures that I took. I was asked to get an MRI, and I did. I had the MRI in May of 2011. That was horrible, because that was done in my hometown, and they were very mean. If you've had an MRI, you know that they are very, very, very loud. I've said before, I have a very brittle neck because I'm lacking muscle mass in my neck. So I can't be startled. I can't take like jumps and stuff like that. Like any kind of jump scares in movies and stuff are not good for me because I don't have the padding, so stuff will pop and move and I'll hurt myself. If you've been in an MRI machine, it's like quiet out of nowhere, and it's scary as hell. And I jumped every time. And the people running the MRI machine, they weren't like yelling at me, but they were being very, very mean. You know, such as saying, "Will you please stop jumping?" And I'm kind of trying to explain to them I can't. I can't help it that it goes quiet and then that noise really loud and it scares the crap out of me. Of course I'm going to jump. Well, you moving is making this impossible to get images. Well, I'm sorry that you're using technology from like the 1820s. You know, make them quieter. It's not my fault. And I actually do have pictures from the MRI to this day still, and I will be doing a separate video, kind of like a follow-up video, a bonus video in the series where I go over some of the pictures from my MRI. So keep an eye out for that. Another hoop I had to go through was in March of 2012. And this is what I call the biggest setup of all. I was asked by the defense to come back to Phoenix for an IME. An IME technically stands for Independent Medical Exam. What it actually stands for is, we the defense have paid off this guy in advance to lie for us. But I guess IME sounds better. So in March of 2012, I flew from Ohio back to Phoenix. Again, it was a setup, because since I could fly, they said that I must not be as bad as I was. And being March 2012, we're looking at going on almost 3 years after the first accident. And logistically, most people heal from neck injuries in a year, year and a half, 2 years max, maybe. I'm going on 3 years and I am not healing. So they're trying to say that I'm just, either it's psychosomatic or that it's not as bad as I say it is, or some combination of that, or somewhere in between there. Basically, the gist from the defense is that I'm lying when I have all this proof that I'm not. So I go back to Phoenix for the IME, and I had that gut feeling, this isn't gonna be good. This isn't gonna be good. My ex did go with me because I needed to have somebody chaperone me. We were already kind of on the outs. I covered that in part 7, but in this, he went with me and it was awkward. So get there, I have the IME. The doctor was so creepy. He was grinning at me, but it was like Cheshire cat grin. I knew it. I was like, this guy he's not a doctor. He's essentially like a politician in America. He's already been paid off, bought off. His opinion has already been paid for, so this is completely meaningless. And I knew it for sure then. Like the pit in my stomach feeling was very much justified. Went through the whole exam, and I have the reverse curve, the bump area in my neck, the x-rays showing that I had the bell-shaped curve with a twist that had to be set, the parts of my spine that poke out from Dr. Posey, completely messing up my spine, my limited range of motion that I still have to this day, the muscle density that I don't have. I had the past stuff of this side of my neck swelling up so much that this arm and hand started going numb. The fact that I'd sleep on my back, that I was bedridden for about 6 months after the first accident, that I couldn't take a shower without help, that I had to cut up my food, not to mention the second accident and going through all of that, and then mentally being set back and then going through all of that again. I was in this weird, I don't know, the cornucopia of crap. Where I was at physically and mentally was not good. And if people didn't want to believe me, thought that I was just making it up, you could just look at the pictures, like I showed in the previous installment, part 7, where I put side-by-side pictures up of me before the accident and after the accident. You can't fake having the life drained out of you. You can't fake that all the curls in your hair are gone because the life is being sucked out of you. You can't fake looking sullen and sallow because your life is being sucked out of you. If you compare me before to me after, I look like a hollow human being because pain sucks the life out of you. And if you're in pain every single day, like I have been now for a decade, it sucks the life out of you. And any life that I do have to this day is life that I had to fight for. But I'll get into that when we get to part 9. So I have the IME. I go and have dinner with my lawyer, who I will always say is a very, very good guy. He's a stand-up guy. In the last 10 years of medical people, or professionals in general, I should say, and professional people, there's only been 2 that I could actually say were good people, and that is my lawyer and my current chiropractor. Those are the only 2 people that I can say are genuinely good people and actually gave a damn about me, and I was more than just a dollar sign. We got the results a few days later, and you can kind of already guess what they were. The so-called doctor stated that I was in perfect health, that there was nothing wrong with me, that my spine and skeletal system was adequate, that my range of motion was normal, his exact words, even though I had all this evidence to the contrary. I had x-rays and pictures. That was essentially the final nail in the coffin for the case. I couldn't fight back. So not only was I watching my body slip away from me and not recover and not heal, my mental state was slipping away from me. That was in bad shape. I'm watching my relationship slip away from me. That's in bad shape. Now I'm watching the lawsuit slip away from me. And like everything else, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't make this heal. I can't make him stay. I can't make this work. It's like the universe has went out of its way to just knock me down and hold me down. I can never get up. I can never get momentum. And that's true to this day. Momentum is a myth for me. I offered to come back for a trial. I was told by my lawyer that that would essentially be pointless. I would run the risk of getting no settlement at all due to the fees that would be accrued from bringing me back and getting a jury and all of that, that it would just cost more in the end and I wouldn't get anything. I was told to essentially just settle out of court for whatever I could get, and that's what I had to do. So I said I was gonna keep it vague. I was projected to get somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 in the beginning, after the accident in Phoenix, based on everything that happened. Because remember, drunk driver, fell asleep, 70, 80 miles per hour, destroyed my car, destroyed my body, bell-shaped curve with a twist, setting neck, mashed potatoes, have to essentially quit my job that I'd had for almost 9 years at that point. Also keep in mind that the amount that we were going for, minus lawyer fees, which are usually 30%, was meant to take care of me the rest of my life. Was meant to cover any medical fees, any future doctor visits, any operations, any surgeries, anything like that. The goal from this lawsuit was to, since I was permanently injured, I'm to this day still permanently injured. I will never be the same. My back can't magically go back to the shape it was. It's been like this forever. Still not healing 10 years later. This is a permanence I'm having to accept. And the amount I was supposed to get was supposed to help me take care of that. The idea was that the money I would get would take care of me medically for the rest of my life. And as you get older, your body starts to break down. I'm in my 30s dealing with this. It's going to get worse as I get older. And my goal was to have surgery that I had asked for and been told no, and then go from there. See what happens with my life, keep a nest egg just in case, because I don't know. Obviously, fate doesn't like me, so I don't know. So low end 300,000, high end 500,000 for the rest of my life, to take care of me for the rest of my life, which I thought was very fair considering my life was completely destroyed and my body was completely destroyed by a drunk driver who fell asleep at the wheel. So that's what I was projected to get. I will not go into a specific amount because I don't know if I'm allowed to on that. So we'll just say after I was forced to settle out of court when I didn't want to, I wanted to fight. Because by now I'm mad and I want to be listened to. Listen to me. If we go low end 300,000, I didn't even get a tenth of that. I won't say specific numbers, but you do the math. Not even close to a tenth of that. That's supposed to protect me the rest of my life. And you also have to factor in, I still can't do physical activity. I can't be on my feet for more than an hour or two without having to sit down. There's no way I can make a traditional job happen. I've been turned down for disability every single time I've tried. So the money that was supposed to be for medical stuff, even, you take 300,000, a tenth of that, less than a tenth, I think it was maybe an eighth of that, that's supposed to sustain me medically for the next decades ahead of me. It is a lot of money in and of itself, but for its intended purpose and for the cost that I had to pay physically and mentally and emotionally and all of that to get it, it's peanuts. I got screwed in the lawsuit, big time. And some of it was my fault. And I didn't know. I didn't know. If sharks smell blood, they'll attack. And I learned that the hard way. I was stuck with so little money from the settlement that I couldn't even afford the next surgery I wanted. I couldn't afford it. That crushed me because I knew then that I could not afford to fix myself. And I was essentially stuck like this. To know that you are stuck, broken, that you're not healing and you probably will never heal, and you got not even enough to pay for one surgery, let alone to sustain you medically for the rest of your life. That was a hard pill to swallow. Remember the dad of the family I used to live with used to joke all the time about how we should go and get a handicap sticker for his car whenever he drove me. Yeah, he told the joke enough that it stopped being funny after the 50th time. Because that's how I felt. I felt disabled. I am permanently messed up. My spine is permanently messed up. My spine is messed up. My neck is messed up. It's been 10 years and I'm nowhere close to being better. And I'm going to be very blunt. Very blunt. I'm trying to be as transparent as possible about everything with everyone. I have been living off of that car accident money just to stay alive, to have a roof over my head and to feed myself and pay bills. And the amount was so low that it's been about 6-7 years later since the settlement, and I am almost broke. So life just doesn't stop with me. Because when I first got the money, the idea was to try and keep as much as possible, just in case. As I go through parts 9 and 10, when I describe what my life became after being asked to move out, you understand why I've done the things I've done to try and make money. And I'll go into it in more detail, photography and now YouTube, stuff that I can do in my condition. I can do it from home and I can do it to try and sustain myself, but none of it works out because I've accepted that I'm just not good enough. And the YouTube stuff, what I'm doing right now, this is do or die. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but it's true. I've always tried to be very personal about stuff, but if anything happens to Justin, Justin is essentially taking care of me. He's everything that my ex refused to be. And I'll go into more detail on that in part 9 and into part 10. But if anything happens to him, I'm homeless. And that's just the truth. Anything happens. I don't have the funds to support myself. And I don't know what to do about that. I have tried since 2013 to find my way, to find a way to support myself, given my condition, given my limitations, which are vast. When I say on the Patreon stuff that any help is appreciated, that's why. That's why the people that do support me, it means so much. When I say it means the world to me, it does, because this is my world that's on the line. And I have no safety net now. I don't know what the right word is, like just living in perpetual fear all of the time. I've already had to relive the setbacks from the accident twice, not counting the little whiplash accidents that I've had. You know, to know that I'm a moment of tragedy away from almost being homeless again. It's scary as hell, guys. It really is. If it happens, I guess I'll just roll with it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can at least say I tried. I did give it my best shot. Another reason I am almost broke is not only because of having to support myself, but in photography and in YouTube. And I sunk a bit of money into gear because I felt in my heart that's like, I can do this. I can make this work. I can be successful at this. If I do enough compositions, if I do enough work that I'm proud of, somebody will notice and somebody will hire me for something. I sunk a decent amount of money into the gear. That's why I still roll with this guy. This is a Canon 5D Classic. You can get this for a couple $100 now. I still use this. It's been about 5 years, 6 years later. I've still got the 5D Classic because that's all I can afford to use. I can't afford to upgrade. And not that I want to, I'm fine with that. But it's just an example of trying to make it work. And I've been trying to make it work for years. And this isn't trying to be a pity party for me. These are all facts of the situation. And I know I got off track from the lawsuit a little bit, but it kind of just seemed like a natural thing to talk about. Yeah, I'm almost broke. And there are reasons that I invested in, but the investment never brought back, the rewards I was hoping. And that's why I've been doing the YouTube thing for about the last 3 years, and same thing. And the entire point of this series has never been about pity. It's never been about, oh, poor Philip. It's always been about, here's my story as is, as open and honest as I can possibly make it, and there it is. This is just the facts that I was shafted big time in my lawsuit for all the reasons that I listed, and I got what I got. And that's just the facts of my life right now. So it's not like I was saying, oh, I'm almost broke, I need to make some videos now. I've been like this for almost 2 years. And I've been able to maintain what little I have left because of Justin and his family helping out so much. And without them, I don't know where I'd be, to be perfectly honest. It's more about getting my story out there, but also giving you a microscope into me. Because now maybe you can understand why photography was so important to me, why I was so determined to make it work. You understand now why YouTube was so important to me and why I was so determined to make it work, because these are things that I can do from home. I can do podcasts sitting over at the desk. I'm just trying to figure it out. How can I survive and thrive in the environment I'm in, with all the stuff I've been through, with all the curveballs life has thrown at me. And I know, and I apologize for jumping ahead. My story is supposed to be linear, and it does tie into the lawsuit with monetary, and I want to be open and honest with everyone. And we need to touch on something I brought up in the last video when I said that my ex needed to stick around because he had a vested interest in me, and it was monetary. My ex's name was also on the lawsuit, and my ex never suffered any kind of setback at all. He was fine. He was fine. All the stuff that happened between us and all the stuff we went through and all the stuff that he did and what happened because of that, and then him giving up and then all of that, and then me being asked to move out, all of that, my ex still got paid. And I call it blood money because it was at the expense of my body physically and everything else that came after it. So to put this into perspective for you and why I'm so upset about the settlement that I got and all of that, we're gonna make up a number. This is not the real number. It's very close, but it's not the real number. So let's say I got $20,000 from almost dying, lucky to walk, breaking my back, messing up my neck, reverse curve, drunk driver, all of it. I got 20,000. That's not what I got, but we'll pretend it is. My ex got about $10,000 for nothing. He knew what I got. He knew what I was supposed to get. And that's why he stuck around, I think, because he knew the amount I was supposed to get, and you're gonna get 30 to 40% of that amount. You're gonna stick around because you're gonna make bank. Now, he didn't make quite as much bank, but I think $10,000 for being in the right place at the right time is pretty good money. And, you know, he took it, and I don't even want to know what he did with it. Because I know whatever he did with it was way less important than what I could have used it for, which was to live. I could have put that money that he got towards the surgery I wanted to get and had just a little more to be that much closer to the surgery. But I'm sure he spent it on frivolous things to show off in front of cute 19-year-olds and buy all new wardrobes and whatever. I don't care. I do care, but I don't care. It's one of those, it is what it is, but those are the facts of the situation. And after my ex got his cut, he never talked to me again. So yeah, I'm sitting here right now, you know, thinking about it all and just so disgusted. In the legal process, in myself, in my ex, like in the end, all he was there for was to make a quick buck off of me like every single other person was. And I'm sitting here in this chair right now talking to you, and that sword of Damocles is hanging over my head at all times. And this isn't me begging for money. This isn't me trying to make anyone feel sorry for me. My life has been what it is. I just want to be as blunt and transparent about it as possible, but it's not fun. Sometimes I wonder just, man, when is it going to be okay for me? When are things going to look up? When do I get momentum? You know, when does life just stop beating me down? It might not be punching me right now, but it definitely has me, you know, out over the edge and holding me there. And any minute, it can just let go. And I don't think I have a safety net now if I fall. And that is truly terrifying. So that is essentially the lawsuit and how it affected me financially and continues to affect me to this day. And yeah, it's another big what if. What if I hadn't moved? What if I'd stayed there? What if I'd gotten the amount that I was projected to get, even low end? You know, I could have had the surgery. I could have been taken care of. I would not be in this situation right now. So yeah, like I said, moving back to Ohio was the biggest mistake I made after the accident. Coming up next will be part 9. And that one will pick up right where part 7 left off, when I was asked to move out of the house. And we'll just pick it up from there. If you've watched this, as always, thank you for watching. I appreciate everyone that spends their precious time watching me talk about parts of my life. So thank you for spending a little bit of your time with a little bit of my life. And I will see you all in the next video.